Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and these are the games leaving the collection for the month of December. This is my second last purge before, well, I guess it's my last purge before we get to my end of year purge. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that one. Historically speaking, at the end of the year, I do one final purge each year where I really try to be as critical as possible about what's in my collection, and not just whether I like it or not, because very often I do, but rather whether I realistically think that certain games are or are not getting tabled, both from the games that I keep in my collection that I've played, as well as the ones that haven't been played and haven't yet been played several years later. Either way, stay tuned for that one. That's usually the big one. This one, though, this is actually not a small purge either. We have 21 games leaving today, 10 games that are kind of in the passing through category, meaning games I've played and I'm choosing not to add to my collection, and 11 games that are actually leaving my collection, meaning they're games that in some way, whether they've been there for a year, 6 months, 5 months, 2 years, 3 years, whatever they've been, if they've been added to my collection, 11 of those are leaving as well today. As usual, several disclaimers and reminders. First of all, if you are over on Ko-Fi or Patreon, if you're a member of the channel, I do give away some of these games every single month to members of the channel. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe there if you're not already. It's a great way to support the channel, which is appreciated, and also a way to possibly get free games every single month. Secondly is the usual reminder that I play a lot of new games every single year. I generally play between 300 to 400 new games a year. That's almost a game a day, and that practically speaking means that it doesn't matter if it's a good game or not. Ultimately, I can only keep so many games in my collection, and so games regularly leave. Games that I didn't really like that much, games that I liked but didn't love, as well as games that I liked very much ultimately do have to go. Some of the games leaving today are great games, and especially that end of year purge when we get to it, there's going to be a lot of great games. The practical reality is I try to keep the best of the best for me personally, as well as not just the best of the best, but those that I think I will table. So if you see a game that I rated a 4 in the review 2 weeks ago or whatnot, sometimes that does happen. It's just the nature of there being so many amazing games that come out every single year, and the reality that I do not have time to play them all, even if they are great. With that said, let's go ahead and start this off. We're going to start off with the games that are passing through, the games that I played, and I'm choosing not to add to my collection. Let's start off with the small box one over here, which is going to be Turnip from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment. I thought Turnip was a fine bluffing game, but ultimately I think that I have my go-to bluffing game. Specifically, it's going to be Skull, not Skull, I don't know why I said that. Skull used to be my go-to bluffing game, but Cockroach Poker is currently my go-to bluffing game that I like the most when I'm looking for that filler feeling. And Turnip is fine, it's okay, but it's not one that impressed me as much as either that one or honestly even ones that I've gotten rid of. Games like Skull or Coup I think are better. Turnip was just a good game for me. We also have Whitehall over here. We have Whitehall, which I think is a good game. I think that is kind of a choice as whether you prefer Whitehall or Let Us Whitechapel. They're very similar, doing a very similar thing in a similar space. For me, neither one are going to be my favorite hidden movement games. Those are going to be currently reserved for Beast and Mind Management are my two favorite hidden movement games, and kind of everything else right now falls in the category of I only have so much room or bandwidth for hidden movement games in my collection. But Whitehall I think is very solid. I just prefer Mind Management and Beast. We also have Infiltrators from Panda Stores over here. Infiltrators is a cute little game that reminded me of Expressions. The general idea of Infiltrators is you're working together trying to deduce information and trying to give players hints, similar to games like Hanabi if you've played that, or like Expressions if you've played that. For me, Expressions is the one that I currently choose to have in my collection. Infiltrators kind of feels like it's a cross between Expressions and The Crew. That's kind of the vibe I get from this one, and ultimately I'd rather play both of those games on their own than Infiltrators, which I think is good. I enjoy Infiltrators, I just think the aspects that it does well are done better by other games. So if you specifically are looking for that combination, sure, this is a good game. Try it, check it out. For me, it was a good game, not a great game. We have a new one over here, Nyakuza. I mean, a lot of these are new ones, depends how new you're looking at. But we have Nyakuza from Simon and Reina Knizia. This is a re-implementation of Orango, I want to say. But Nyakuza is basically kind of a little bit of an area control game where you're trying to place out boats on this grid in order to connect different types of, well, spots on the board in order to be able to build stalls and ultimately build all your stalls before the other players. It has a nice little bidding mechanism that forces you to really consider what you think the other players are going to do and what you're going to do in order to make sure you keep your currency going as well as getting the positions you want on the board. It is an overall good puzzle. My biggest issue is Reina Knizia has a certain kind of game style that I do find very prevalent in terms of his tile laying series, and they all kind of blend together when you play enough of them. I have played so many Reina Knizia games that have this get control of tiles using some mechanism and some reason why you're trying to do so, and that's not a dig on it. I think they're really good. There's just so many that I find I have my favorites, and Nyakuza is not there. It's a good game. I enjoy it. I had fun with this. He just has so many games in the genre, it's impossible to, well, not impossible. For me, I'm not going to own all of them. We have Snatch It, another small box game over here. This one I was fairly disappointed by. Snatch It to me was more complicated than I would want for a light filler, family-friendly game, and just way too luck-driven and not satisfying enough. Honestly, I was fairly harsh on this game in my review, because I just think that I think a game that's going to be a light filler should be a light filler. A game that's going to have you possibly losing half your points through sheer luck of the draw should very much be a light filler. And I thought the rules were not complicated compared to actual complicated games, but it was unnecessarily complicated for what this game is trying to do and for the spot this game falls in. I would rather play dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of games over introducing this to new players. I just don't think it impresses I don't think it impresses. I don't think it does, and I think it's too complicated for what it's trying to do. We have Divine Wrath, Catharsis Divine Wrath over here. This is a big box game. Big box game over here. This is going to be a cooperative style dice throne game. It's going to be Yahtzee style, rolling dice and trying to assign them to abilities with asymmetric characters as you face off against a boss. Cooperative or solo play, facing off against the various enemies, each enemy and each character being vastly different in how they operate. The asymmetry is insane in this game. The character, variety and nuance is off the charts, but ultimately I found that the graphic design and art really just isn't there for me, and makes it a game that, as much as I appreciate the game design, I just would never pull this out and table it over other games. Art and presentation do matter, at least for me, and I kind of want both in a game. A game that is too light on the art and presentation, a game that has too much art and presentation and not enough oomph to it won't get tabled because it's not satisfying. And a game that has satisfying gameplay but a lack of art and presentation won't get tabled because I don't have the drive to pull that game off the shelf. And it is case by case. Some of my favorite games in my collection do have that lack. Terraforming Mars historically does have a lack in how good the art is, so it is case by case. There's always reasons why one, not the other. Ultimately for Catharsis, it fell short in the way the game presents itself, and too much text, too heavy, and so I think the game design is actually very well done if you want to check it out. For me, the full package just isn't there. We have Great Western Trail Argentina, a well-loved version of a well-loved game. Great Western Trail for me is a game that never landed the way it has landed for others. I have always appreciated both the original Great Western Trail as well as Argentina. I think they are good games that, to me, I enjoy them. I see the mechanisms at play, I understand why they're liked, but they never fully stuck the landing for me. Great Western Trail I've played a bunch of times, kept on trying to like it, kept on trying to, not like it, like is the wrong word because I do like it, kept on trying to like it more, kept on trying to find more out of the system, and ultimately for me I've always found it to be just a game that really works, but doesn't give me that same mental reward that many other Euro games do. Great Western Trail Argentina kind of falls in a similar space for me. It does some interesting new things. I do think if you're a huge Great Western Trail fan, there's probably reasons to own both. They are different enough in the way they operate, but ultimately for me, it's another Great Western Trail for all the things that I like and don't like about it. It's a good game. It's a good game. I appreciate it. I have other Euro games I'm going to table more. Intarsia is a great game for a first play or maybe two. After that, I think the game gets way too repetitive. This game kind of finds itself in the Azul-like style of both the beautiful presentation as well as the simple gameplay where you're trying to find ways to just edge out a few extra points here or there as you try to build things on your own personal board, getting back cards, using those to buy the next thing. There's a nice little puzzle at play here. I do find that puzzle gets boring on your second play already, and your third play for sure. By boring might be the wrong terminology. Repetitive, I should say. I felt that my first play of Intarsia, I kind of saw the game, enjoyed the game, and my second play of Intarsia, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything meaningfully different. Now, there are players out there who do like that slow optimization of finding that perfect game and trying to iterate your way from the basic strategy to perfecting every nuance of it. I'm not that player. I like variety in the experience. I like it when games feel different, either player determined, because based on me reacting to the players, or the game in terms of what the game's going to throw at you. Intarsia is a beautiful presentation, but for me, by the time I dove into my second game, I was already not feeling the repetition of the experience. And then a hard one for me, an interesting one, from the games that are not in my collection, so to speak, the games that are passing through, City of the Great Machine is a harder one for me because of my previous coverage on it. I did a first impression review of City of the Great Machine, talking about my experience with it. I like it, I appreciate it, it's a good hidden movement game, there's a lot of things going well for the experience. I just, like I said already, I have my preferred hidden movement games, and City of the Great Machine doesn't take over those spots, despite me liking the game. I did comment that I've heard good things about the solo play, and I had a lot of of people in that video being like, I don't even care about the game in multiplayer, I'm purely there for the solo play, which has me kind of wanting to try it out. Like, this is in the games leaving the collection video. If I happen to table it solo, I happen to table it solo, we'll see. But it really, the amount of people who are there saying, I don't even care about the game except for the solo play, was a large enough number of people that I'm like, maybe this is just a game to play solo. Maybe this is just a game that will thrive as a solo game, and it does make me want to dive into it because of the high praise the solo was getting. For me right now, I just have to recognize my own backlog and the amount of games I want to table, and the reality of whether I'll table it, considering its solo play is not my main genre. I find solo plays are maybe 15 to 20% of my plays. It's not the main area I play games, but it is an area I enjoy. But would this break through? I don't know. But it does. The high praise definitely made it intriguing. And these are the 10 games that are passing through. The 10 games that are not making their way into my collection. They were never in my collection. I tried them, I played them, and they are not sticking around. We have 11 more games. Was it 11 or 10? These were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is it only 9? Did I say this? How many games did I say were in? I feel like I lost track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 games over here. How many are over here? We'll see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I counted wrong at some point, or something fell on the floor. Either way, we're going to move on from that. So, as far as the games that are passing through, as far as the games that are leaving my collection, these are all games that I did add to my collection. Some were here for a matter of months. Some were here for, what's the longest one here? Longest might be a little over a year. Nothing here is crazy old. But let's start off with some small boxes. We have Sweet and Spicy, which I believe I picked up at PAX Unplugged 2023, which we're about to hit PAX Unplugged 2024. In fact, by the time you're watching this video, that might well be PAX Unplugged 2024. So this has been in my collection for around a year. I've enjoyed it. It's a nice, accessible version of Spicy, which my kids enjoyed and my GameCube enjoyed, so I got Sweet and Spicy. I've played it, but like I said, I find I do default to games like That's Not a Hat, This Is Not a Hat, whatever it is, as well as Cockroach Poker as my preferred bluffing games. So despite enjoying Spicy, the original Spicy I had in my collection for like a year, and Sweet and Spicy I had in my collection for around a year, but both of them haven't really stood the test of time compared to other games that have lasted a lot longer. We have Contra Banter. This is a fun one. I picked this up, I want to say, Gamma, I believe, so it's been in my collection for maybe 9 months or so. I think Contra Banter is a very interesting and very unique game about smuggling words through to the other team. Basically, you're working on teams and you're trying to talk to each other, and there's certain words you're trying to make sure enter the message, and the other team has to kind of catch those words. I do enjoy this game, but I find it's very player dependent. The right players can have an absolute blast with this game, and the wrong players will not want to table this game at all. Because of that, I have found that I have got to the table and infrequently enjoyed a very good game of it, but it usually is not the one that gets picked off the shelf because of how player-dependent Contra Banter can be. If you do enjoy that kind of game, if you like the idea of being handed, like, here's 3 words you have to kind of smuggle into a conversation, and the other team's listening and trying to see, like, wait, you were asked a question about what your dream vacation is, why did you just say the word funeral along that? Like, and like, the problem is then you're trying to add those words in because you're trying to throw in extra words to throw them off the trail. It is an interesting game. It's very, very different than anything out there, but it's also very player-dependent, so it is going for now. We have Knarr, which I've said in my review of this one that I like the game. I do find it's a little repetitive how it goes. For me, the only reason I'm willing to let this go right now is because I do find that I play this one on Board Game Arena anyway. So if I do want that quick, satisfying gameplay that Knarr can provide, Board Game Arena does it for me. As it stands, Knarr is a good, enjoyable game. I do recommend it. I definitely recommend other small box games, even from Pandasaurus, more. So Knarr is like one that's up there, but not up there. And Board Game Arena is the death knell for this one because I can table and get the experience easily there. We have Space Explorers. I played this a while ago, had it in my collection for a while as I continue to dive into it, but ultimately I do find that the gameplay feels like Splendor, but a bit more complicated while not being better. The original pitch of it was Splendor, but more interesting, which is why I was intrigued by it, but ultimately it's one that I found as Splendor, but more complicated, which is not nearly as satisfying as an experience. We have A Message from the Stars. This is a very solid one that I do enjoy. I don't remember when I reviewed this. I want to say like 6 months ago-ish. But I enjoy Message from the Stars. It's from Allplay. It's a good game about trying to pass through, but trying to give clues to your team to try to get them to figure out, well, what the words are in the game. I do find it's a very, very puzzly experience as far as trying to pass those messages on. You have a limited amount of what you can convey, and you're trying to play two different puzzles at the same time, which makes it very challenging. I enjoy it. I just find that there's a lot of deduction games out there nowadays, and there's some that I prefer more. Like, even this kind of falls in the same mental space as Things and Rings from All Play as well. I played both of them at roughly the same time for the first time, and I find that I'll always pull out Things and Rings more so. They are different. They're very different games, but they occupy the same, like, the experience that I get out of a game, I'm looking for the same experience from both. So when I'm in the mood for a game like Mess from the Stars, I'm almost always going to just pull out Things and Rings instead, because it gives me the same vibes. Again, vibes is the key word here. They are very different experiences, but that kind of deductive aspect, there are other games I'm just going to pull off the shelf. Right now, Things and Rings is the main one for me. We have Flashback Lucy as well as Flashback Zombie Kidz. These are both enjoyable experiences that I have finished. I have finished these games. I've played through the scenarios. They're both good. They both gave me that fun escape room style experience. Like, they're not really full escape rooms, but they definitely have a degree of mystery. I would say the Zombie Kidz one more is a little bit more procedural, so it's a little more about just going through the steps and then answering questions, but there still is a little bit of deductiveness going on. And Flashback Lucy definitely had a bit more as far as trying to actually solve something or figure out stuff from the clues provided. In both cases, I enjoyed them both. In both cases, I think they're not my favorite escape room style game, but they are ones that I enjoyed, and in both cases, I've played them, so I'm ready to move on from them. We have Tranquility the Ascent. Tranquility the Ascent. This is one that I wasn't sure whether I should or shouldn't keep, because I like Tranquility. I love the original Tranquility. I still have that one, and I like Tranquility the Ascent. I do find that I like the original Tranquility more, and I think I would always prefer to table the original Tranquility, although the expansions in Tranquility the Ascent can give you some interesting gameplay decisions that almost make me want to keep this, but I'm trying to be responsible about limited game time and limited shelf space and limited everything. And so because of that, I think I'm going to stick with the one that I just like more, despite the fact that this does bring something new to the table, specifically if you're playing with the expansions. Then we have Mythwind over here. If I can get this off the side. Mythwind is another one that I very much enjoyed. This is actually an interesting one, because when I played the original prototype, I did not like the original prototype at all. I found that the original prototype, the pitch of Mythwind is a game that you play to keep on playing. You play so you can build, and then you just move forward, and you're trying to accomplish challenges, and you go through this arc, but you don't really fail. You just keep playing the game, like you would a game like Stardew Valley, or right now I'm playing Factorio. You don't lose Factorio, you just play Factorio until you completed the stuff you want to complete. Mythwind promised that concept, and the original prototype, I found that I was lacking enough of a reason to play any individual session. It didn't pull me in as much. I think the final game did do a better job of sticking the landing for me, in the sense that there's enough stuff that I'm trying to discover. There's events happening, and each individual chapter you're playing through still has goals. You don't lose, but you're trying to accomplish those goals as you try to build up the valley you're in. So I think they did a much better job with the final version of the game compared to the prototype, but at the end of the day, it still doesn't give me that main drive. If I want this kind of experience, I will get it from a computer game or a video game or whatever. I find that in the tabletop space, games that ask you to just keep playing without really having a lose condition, so far they haven't fully stuck the landing for me. The closest one so far is going to be Spiritfire from Orange Nebula, but even that gets this giant asterisk because I only played it in the prototype phase, and similar to the way the prototype of Mythwind didn't work and then the final game was better, that can go both directions, and I didn't get to see the full world of Spiritfire. But I think I've played Dorfromantik and Mythwind, which for me have been games that I enjoyed, but don't feel the need to keep and heavily invest into. Spiritfire is the one that I'm most intrigued whether it will stick that landing for me, because I found the gameplay itself significantly more satisfying, and that could be enough to make this work. Ultimately, we'll see. I don't yet have the answer right now, but Mythwind itself is one that I've enjoyed going through a few characters, and I'm ready to move on from it. And then the last and hardest one over here, although it's not that hard, it hurts because it's a good game, but it's an easy choice, if that makes sense. And the reason for that is going to be Army of the Dead Zombicide from CMON. This is an interesting one to me because I really like Army of the Dead. If you saw my review of it, I really enjoy it. I think it's a good game. Not just a good game, I think it's a great game. It gave me I wasn't one that I was expecting to really enjoy and appreciate. When I played Army of the Dead, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of the more mass market, not really difficult enough Zombicide experiences. And then having played it, I'm like, no, this is a really good, challenging experience. It adds some new mechanics to Zombicide that I really enjoy. And I think Army of the Dead is worth picking up ish. This is where we get to the ish part, and this is where it gets to the leaving my collection part as well. As much as I enjoy Army of the Dead, as much like I've played it several times since I did a gameplay and a review, and I've played it several times, I have not gone through all the missions, but I've gone through enough of them that I feel like I've enjoyed and seen what Army of the Dead Zombicide does, and I would keep it if not for the fact that I have all the Marvel zombies. I have Zombicide White Death coming, I have Zombicide Disease coming, I have Black Death and all the Green Plague and all that stuff. I have too much in this genre of literally just Zombicide before we even get into Massive Darkness, Cthulhu Death May Die, all the other offshoots there. And so I really like Army of the Dead Zombicide. I just don't like it more than Black Plague or Marvel Zombies, and that means that having played through enough of the scenarios, I'm ready to move on from it. But I will miss some of the things that it does that are different, but not enough to have yet another Zombicide in my collection forever. This, to me, was a game that I enjoyed, was always going to play through a bunch. I don't know if I was going to finish it or not. I'm not going to finish it, I can tell you that right now. But I've played through enough of the scenarios that I'm like, you know what? I've seen the game, I've enjoyed the game, I've gotten that flavor, that modularity of Army of the Dead Zombicide, and now I'm going to stick with the ones that are currently my favorites, which is Black Death and our Marvel Zombies. And so this one's one of those hard ones because I enjoy the game enough that it absolutely should be in my collection, but it's too comparable to other games that I have. This is always going to be a problem with certain types of games. It's always going to be a problem. Like right now, even just right now, I was looking at my shelf. I have, 3 games in the Next Station series. Next Station London and Tokyo and Paris. Do I really need all 3 of those? And in that case, the answer is all 3 games are like this big. So like, I'm going to have them for right now. But whenever you have games doing similar things, Great Western Trail versus Argentina. Right now, I just came back from Orange Nebula and I have Vestige versus Vindication. Whenever you have games that are operating in a similar space doing similar things, how much bandwidth do you have for those games? And a lot of it's going to come down to how different are the game experiences and how much do you like that individual game. So for example, like using this or using Vindication or Vestige, if you're like a loose fan of Vindication, you probably don't need both those games in your collection. But if you're a hardcore fan, maybe you do. For me, I'm a hardcore fan of Zombicide, and that means that I have Marvel Zombies, White Death, Black Plague, Green Horde, and DC's all there. Granted, I don't yet know what's going to happen with White Death, but the others I think are pretty safe. Green Horde, Black Death, no, did I say Black Death? No, White Death, Black Plague. Green Horde, Black Plague, Deceased, and Marvel Zombies I think are very safe in my collection, and that's already 4 giant Zombicides. I don't need Army of the Dead, but it was a good time while I had it. And that's what we have over here. That's what we have for the games leaving my collection. That means there are 10 games leaving my collection. There's another 9 or so here, whatever the count over here is. But we also have 11 campaign games that if you missed the video already, I did a campaign game purge, you can check out that, and 11 other games left my collection from that. So we had Undaunted Stalingrad, Sleeping Gods, Frosthaven, Madara, Dice Bone Adventures, Descent, Stars of Arcaros, Nova Aetus Renaissance, Divinity Original Sin, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, and 7 Citadel. That is 11 games that have left my collection for my campaign games, 10 games that will leave my collection in this video. That puts me at 21 games gone, and if you've been following my series of games added versus leaving, last time I checked, I was up 16 games for the year, and with 21 leaving, that puts me at -5 games in my collection for the year, and that's before I even get to my big box, my end of year giant collection purge, which again, I'll see what I actually get up to in that, but I'm hoping I can purge at least 20 games. We'll see what happens there. But either way, that is basically where we're at so far. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. As I mentioned before, if you are a member over on Ko-Fi or Patreon, some of these games will be given away for free over there. And outside of that, I hope you have a good one.